As far as the number of people that have died so far from AIDS, AIDS was discovered in 1981. This particular piece of art is from 2011, where over 30 million people had died so far. Today in 2018, 35 million people have died of AIDS-related causes. As far as those living today, about 36.7 million are currently living with HIV and AIDS, but we'll talk more about statistics as we go. So like I said, HIV was found in 1981. Anyone know where? And it's right here. So UCLA is actually the very first place that AIDS was discovered back in 1981. So we really are at the very beginning of the HIV epidemic here on campus. AIDS was discovered first. It was originally not called AIDS. It was actually referred to as GRIDS, which stands for Gay-Related Immune Deficiency Syndrome. So GRIDS, AIDS back in the day, when it was called GRIDS, was thought to be linked to the gay lifestyle. And I don't know about you guys, but I spend all of my free time watching Netflix on my couch, and I don't think you can get HIV from that, so that's not really a thing. So as we moved on, as you know, it's 2018, as time's gone on, it really hasn't been so much a gay disease, but it definitely has affected us in our roots of HIV and AIDS. So this particular poster is from 1987. It was a time when the government in America wasn't really doing anything about HIV and AIDS. They were letting people who had HIV and AIDS, mainly gay men, die because it was a part of society that they didn't really care about. It was, oh, it was just the gays, you know, we don't really care about them, go ahead and let them die, and we'll continue working on, focusing on other things. So the Silence Equals Death movement was when a bunch of gay men got together and said, no, you're not going to not listen to us. It's not going to be an option to ignore us. And that's what Silence Equals Death is obviously stating. However, the little pink triangle is also saying a lot. So this pink triangle, like I said, this was published in 1987. It was actually the prominent symbol for gay pride. So we know that as the rainbow today, but it's actually this little pink triangle, and it has origins in the Holocaust. So during the Holocaust, Jewish people, of course, were the most affected group. However, lots of people were targeted in the Holocaust. And so, as you know, some people wore stars on their clothes because they were Jewish. If you were gay, you wore a pink upside-down triangle, as you can see here. So that was to denote anyone who was considered a sexual deviant, which included homosexuals, zoophiles, pedophiles, things like that. And so the reason that this was chosen specifically for this poster was to harken back to the last time where the world kind of turned its eye against a lot of injustice that was happening. The last time where we kind of closed our eyes and said, okay, if we don't pay attention, if we don't look at it, it's just going to go away. But that's obviously, we've seen, if you ignore a problem, it doesn't go away. So by harkening back to the Holocaust, the Silence Equals Death poster is definitely it's definitely one of the most important pieces of HIV propaganda in the history of the epidemic, but it's definitely one of my favorites as well, because a lot of people forget that gay history starts before AIDS a lot of the time. In 1970, that pink triangle would have definitely been the #1 gay pride symbol. However, we do have another symbol for HIV today. It's the red ribbon. It's right here on my shirt. That wasn't a coincidence. So it's actually really cool. You guys know there's breast cancer ribbons, there's ribbons for every cause. It actually started with HIV and AIDS. So in 1991, they decided that the red ribbon was going to represent our cause. It started being worn in the Tony Awards, the Academy Awards, and it was a really great way for people to show solidarity with the cause. When you deal with a minority group of any kind, you cannot do it by yourself. If all the gay people were to get together and go vote on a measure, we might get 5, maybe 10% of the vote if you're being optimistic. Any minority has to have the help of people who are outside of that group in order to succeed, in order to meet their goals. And so the red ribbon is a really great way to show that. So this next one, there's 2 parts I'm going to talk about. The first is that red ribbon, and it kind of talks about the power of it, because anyone can wear a ribbon, but it doesn't really mean anything. In the end, it's just a ribbon. It's supposed to show your support for the cause. So the person wearing the ribbon is what it's supposed to represent. The ribbon itself is just red. So the reason I bring this up is because criminalization of HIV in America still happens today. So when I wrote a 20-page research paper on HIV and AIDS, that's what this presentation is based off of. I wrote that in 2015, and when I wrote that, 32 states had anti-HIV laws written into it legislatively. So that's 32, that's more than half of the states in America. This isn't 20 years ago, this isn't, you know, in a different country, this is right here. And so all these people are showing support. If you go out and ask anyone, oh, do you want to help end AIDS? Of course they say yes, of course they'll wear that red ribbon. But if that's the case, then why do 32 states still have it in their legislature that HIV is something that you should be ashamed of? They're laws that aren't based in scientific fact. They are not cases where people have been raped or sexual assault or anything like that. They are experiences of consensual sex where HIV positive people are often had to register as sex offenders, things like that. There's actually a case where an HIV positive person was persecuted for spitting on someone else, which is scientifically not possible to transmit HIV. An HIV positive person can spit on you all you want, you're not going to get it. These laws are not based in scientific fact, they're based in superstition and stigma, and that's something that we really need to tackle. In America, we have the tools, we have the medicine, we have the treatment that allows us to cope with the physical disease and the actual virus, but a lot of things that we still need to tackle are the stigma surrounding it and correcting people's, previous thoughts and really getting people to be advocates. Because wearing a red ribbon, like I said, doesn't mean anything. It's what you do, because of that ribbon. So the last one was called Criminalization is Not a Cure. This one is called Fear is Not a Cure. And this is one of my favorites because my topic is called Let's Talk About AIDS. I didn't come up with that myself. Has anyone heard of salt and pepper? Yes? Yeah? Let's talk about sex, let's talk about sex, baby. In the 90s, they changed the word to AIDS and had a public service announcement about safe sex, which is so cool. And it's one of my favorite songs to listen to. You have to find it on YouTube. And there's only one line in the song that I don't like, and it's, I don't have sex anymore, as the way to prevent yourself from getting HIV. So I'm a very sex-positive person. Fear has absolutely no world in this, it has no place in the world of safe sex, because if fear is what prevents you from getting HIV, what do you say to people who already have HIV? Are they supposed to be afraid of themselves? That doesn't really work. So it's important to not be afraid and to instead be knowledgeable, be educated. It is much safer to have sex with X amount of people protected, being safe, rather than having sex with one person unprotected. Being educated, being on top of it, you are able to actually control the disease better than something like fear. So the next one is by the same artist. And it's called Day One. And this is one of my favorite things, one of my favorite pieces, because if you were to put yourself in the position of being diagnosed with HIV, from an outsider perspective, everyone's first go-to reaction is, oh my God, HIV can kill you. HIV is a really deadly disease. 35 million people in the world have died from AIDS-related causes. So this is the beginning of the end. But a lot of people's first reaction is not the disease or death or anything like that. Because that doesn't look like a person who's afraid of dying. That looks like a person who's afraid of living, because the stigma associated with these diseases today can be a lot more impactful than the disease itself. Like I said, we have the medicine, we have the treatment. Today in America, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but in 2016, 99 kids were born with HIV in the United States. 400 babies are born every day with HIV in the world. Only 99 of them of the entire year came from within America. So we, here, we're not really worrying about the disease, we're worrying about the stigma, because the feelings and thoughts from 1981 that it's a gay problem or that people with HIV are undesirable, they did something to deserve it, all of those ideas around stigma are still prevalent today, and that's the number one thing we're tackling. That's what we're tackling right now by talking about HIV and AIDS. If you don't know that, we are. And this is more of going into the gay aspect of HIV and AIDS. So on dating apps, it's a very popular way to say that you are HIV negative by saying that you're clean. So a lot of people, if you have noticed through some of this artwork, people don't like to talk about the actual subject. People don't like to say HIV is transmitted through vaginal fluid, rectal fluid, pre-ejaculate, semen, breast milk, and blood. That's a really graphic list. People would much rather say gay-related lifestyle. So it's much more attractive to say I'm clean than it is to bring up the talk of HIV, especially on gay dating apps. But the problem is that it adds a connotation to HIV negative. If HIV negative people are clean, the only other option for HIV positive people is to be dirty. So when people perpetuate this stigma, on the flip side, even though you are not saying anything about someone with HIV, you're not saying HIV positive, you're not talking about people with HIV, by saying HIV negative is clean, the inverse is that HIV positive is dirty. And so these are two of my favorite. I like all this art. If you haven't noticed, I keep saying everything's my favorite. These are two of my favorites because we talked about that pink triangle. The pink triangle upright is a sign of gay pride, but this is actually the triangle that the Nazis used. So it's the upside down triangle, and more than that, it's a patch. So back then, back in the Holocaust, Nazis gave these patches to people to minimize their entire human value down to one aspect of their person. And they said, this is all you are, and it's not desirable, so we need to get rid of you. But what Charles is doing is he's saying, yes, this is a label, and I am damn proud of it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being HIV positive. And so I really like the fact that it is just right in your face, the exact same patch, shape, everything of the original symbol that it harkened back to. And then also the clean, so this is actually, it's a large wood block, and clean is spelled in mirrors, so if you were to step in front of it, you would see reflections of yourself. This is, again, one of my really favorite things because it's interactive art. When you stand in front of it, you see the word clean. It's obviously not clean, but you also see your reflection in that. And again, it puts the emphasis on the people using the term clean. They are not saying anything about HIV positive people, but we've gone over this, but saying they're clean, the only other option is dirty. And it's difficult to be a conscious advocate, and we'll talk about what it means to be a conscious advocate in a little bit, but saying like, no, that's not okay to say is one of the easiest ways to do that. There is the campaign, spread the word to end the word. Every time someone says the R word, I immediately just say that. Spread the word to end the word. And that is being an advocate. It is so simple, it's so easy. You don't have to write a 20-page research paper. You don't have to put together a presentation and talk to a bunch of strangers. You don't have to do that. It's really easy to stand up for what you know is right and stand up for things that you believe in. So this is the AIDS quilt. It is the largest piece of community art in the entire world. It was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. So this is really cool. The family of anyone who has passed away from AIDS-related diseases has the opportunity to make their loved one a quilt block, and then they're all sewn together here in the AIDS quilt. So it actually hasn't been shown together in its entirety since, I believe, 2002, because it is so large. Here are some examples of the things, of the different blocks. One of the reasons I love the AIDS quilt so much is because it shows all the people who are affected by AIDS. You will see a 40-year-old woman next to a young gay man, next to an old immigrant, next to anyone you can possibly imagine. AIDS, HIV, unlike our society, doesn't know, what you're interested in. It doesn't know, the person that you are. It doesn't know any of these facts about you, like your race, your age, your sexuality. It will and can infect any person of any demographic. And so one of the reasons I love the AIDS quilt so much is because it shows kind of everyone is applicable to this. It's not a gay problem, it's not a black problem, it's not I'm running out of problems. It's not any of those problems. It's something for all of us to do and all of us to care about. And then this is specifically my favorite block in the entire AIDS quilt. You guys can read it yourself, but the reason I like this so much is that I'm 22 years old, and this is what I get to do at my point in my life. I am just now graduating from UCLA with a Bachelor of Arts in Communication and Bachelor of Science in Biology. I am so excited about this is the start of my life. But for a lot of people, 22 was the very end of their life. It took a lot of people away before they had the opportunity to go out and find, how they want to change the world. And so for me, this is the reason that's my favorite, is because right now, me and that person in the picture are at the same exact age and time, but we're in very different spots in our lives, and there is absolutely no reason that he could have been there other than the fact that he unfortunately had this disease. There's nothing about his person, there's nothing about the content of his character, it's just what happened. But we've come so far. So HIV and AIDS today, like I said, is not a death sentence. We have treatment. We know more about it. Stigma is still a problem, but it is definitely improving all over, definitely the country and the world. So this one and the next two are part of the same art sequence. They're postcards. In this exact spot, I disclosed to my partner of 10 years that I tested HIV positive. A lot of people, and so in the past, that would definitely be like a reason to break up, but today, if someone is HIV positive and they're on medication, they can get to an undetectable status where it is 100% safe to have sex with HIV negative people and they won't pass on the disease. So if people, like I said, education is so important. If people know their status, if people are on their medication, if people are having protected safe sex, then you will be safe. But we'll go to the next one. This is also a really happy, optimistic one. Again, HIV is not a death sentence. It definitely was in the past, and we will talk about what it's like in other parts of the world. But like I said, we have the treatment, we have the information. Right now, all we need to do is get it into the hands of those who need it. So even though we have come a really far way, it is important to remember that we're in America. Like I said, in 2016, 99 babies were born in America in the entire year with HIV, whereas there are 400 born every single day in the world. So obviously the problem is not here in our country. In sub-Saharan Africa, 1 out of every 25 people have HIV. 2/3 of the HIV cases today in the world, of the 36.7 million people living with HIV, are in sub-Saharan Africa. That's a huge disproportionate amount to the entire world. So, like I said, even though we have the medication, even though we have the treatment, it's about getting it to those places and remembering that the rest of the world is not in the state that America's in. This painting is about 2 Middle Eastern gay teenagers that were hanged because they were homosexuals. We forget in America how far we have come, how far we've come in not only our treatment and technology, but like the status of society. In the early 80s, it was a day disease, and I've said that over and over, and I'm pretty sure everyone here knows HIV is not a day disease, but for a lot of parts of the world, people still think that. If you go to sub-Saharan Africa, if you go to Asia, if you go to the Middle East, a lot of HIV positive people talk about how the stigma of either like being undesirable, of associating themselves with undesirable, that's a terrible word, those groups, because a lot of people, there are lots of ways to get HIV and AIDS, but a lot of times if you come out as saying, I have HIV, people associate you with intravenous drug users, or that you were homosexual, things like that, even though there are other ways to get HIV. So the reason I definitely wanted to include this is to kind of show that the biggest part of the HIV epidemic, the biggest problem you have to tackle is not here in America. And that's why it's so difficult, is because I can get all of you guys super excited and all let's go stop HIV and AIDS, but the problem is not here, the problem is elsewhere. So it's how do we get those people that medication, how do we challenge stigma across seas, because stigma here in America, like I said, it is better, but there are still places of the country where you'll find people being discriminated against because of this. Like I said, 32 states have anti-HIV in their legislation. It's still prevalent here, but it's even worse overseas in other regions. So that's definitely where the HIV battle is going on right now. This past summer, I got to work at the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which is a global nonprofit, and I was seeing HIV on a global scale is nothing like seeing HIV in America. And it brought up a lot of problems that I didn't even think were problems. They're problems that I learned about in history. That's something that America dealt with in the 80s. We don't have to deal with that now, but it's privilege. A lot of people in other countries do have to experience those things. But I do want to end on a happy note. I've said a lot of things are my favorite. I totally know that. This is my all-time favorite piece. I'm serious guys, I promise. I mean it this time. So it says, if I run out of words, my spirit will take over. If my spirit is overcome, others will bear my torch. And this, like I said, this is my favorite. You don't know it right now, but every single person in this room is helping to bear the torches of the 35 million people who have died worldwide from AIDS-related causes. We are never going to know all of their names. We are never going to know all of their stories, but a part of them is able to live on through advocacy, through people sharing stories, through people being interested. In the past 15 minutes, every single person here is holding a torch. Is it heavy? Are you hot? Are you winded? No, it's so easy to be an advocate and to share and to help preserve the memories and lives of those who are not here right now to share their own stories. And so, this is where I'm gonna give you some homework. I feel like a professor over here. I'm in like a blazer, I'm gonna give you homework, I'm lecturing. But the thing I want everyone to go home and do, not right after this, but I want everyone to tell one of your friends who's not here what your favorite thing you learned today was. It should be about my presentation, I would love it, hey. It could be about one of their presentations, I don't care what it is, just tell one person one thing. And you will be helping to bear the torch of whatever subject it is that was the most interesting to you. It is so easy to be an advocate and to share your opinions and to share what's interesting to you, because someone might not know that. If you go up to someone and say, hey, did you know that mother-to-child transmission of HIV is 100% preventable? If they didn't know that, now they do. That's one more piece of HIV knowledge out in the world to help bear another torch, to help challenge stigma, to when they're in a different situation and someone says something wrong, now they have the power and the education to stand up and say, no, that's wrong, that's not how it actually is. And so I hope that all of you really take the initiative to actually just say it. Say it. It's so easy. Like I said, spread the word to end the word. Boom. I was done. I was just an advocate. It does not take any work at all. So please, after you leave here, go share your thoughts. Go share what the favorite thing it is that you learned. But there are definitely some more ways you can get involved. If you've liked the art that I have been talking about today, all of it came from Visual AIDS, which is a large resource of all the all HIV positive artists in the world have the opportunity to show their artwork there. So that's where I collected all of my art. Also the AIDS Memorial is where I found my favorite AIDS quilt panel. So their slogan is "What Remembered Lives," and I think that goes along with what I've been talking about. But they're one of the best ways that I kind of am an HIV and AIDS advocate in my day-to-day life. They post a picture all the time, me liking that photo on Instagram, boom, I'm an advocate. It's really so easy. And the very last one I want to talk about is Dance Marathon at UCLA. So I'm actually on the Pediatric AIDS Coalition. I should have said that first. So we put on Dance Marathon. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a 26-hour dance-a-thon where students take a literal stand against pediatric AIDS by remaining on their feet for 26 hours. You might be thinking, oh, I'm not trying to commit 26 hours to this. You just said being an advocate was easy. I'm not trying to stand on my feet for 26 hours. And that's totally okay. There are lots of ways to get involved with Dance Marathon, but the one thing I do want to tell you is we're actually having part of the AIDS quilt there this year. That's what I'm so excited about. If you guys liked this presentation, if you thought that it was really powerful, you can actually see the AIDS quilt in person. Of course, not the whole thing. Like I said, that hasn't been shown in a hot minute. But you can come see real panels and really see this art in real life. And so I definitely encourage all of you to come out to that. And also, I'll be around afterwards, ask me any questions. Like I said, I'd like to talk about AIDS. Let's talk about AIDS. But anyway, thank you guys so much.